I have dreamt of this scenario for a very long time. And now that I have the tools to make it happen, I was able to live out a fantasy that I had hoped for since 2018. I wrote a song, mixed and mastered it, made the cover art for it, and submitted everything to all the music streaming services, all done exclusively on this very iPad. When I took on this iPad only challenge, I was very intentional about approaching this from the perspective as a content creator, because I am one. And I'm not just talking about YouTube or the podcast that I do. I write music full time. I'm working on an album right now. I've written background music for other creators to use, and I've also made things for other creators and musicians. At the core of all that I do, I would tell you that I'm a musician first. I'm just one who's heavily into tech, and I use tech, like this iPad, to my advantage, as with all my other gear that aids me in all my productions. So with that, let's talk about how the production with all of this went. After I downloaded the app, the very first thing that I did is I ran to my piano keyboard over here and I plugged it directly into my USB-C hub for the iPad, as well as behind my studio display, because it has the USB-C ports as well. I did this because I was really worried that it might not work with the daisy chaining, because for whatever reason, my mic won't work unless it's directly plugged into the iPad. I hate that, but that's just what it is. But thank God, everything was working just fine with the piano. I took some time to get used to the layout for the Logic app for iPad, because it is noticeably different from the Mac version. Much like anything else I've learned about iPad throughout this whole experience, everything was an additional 1 to 2 steps to get to the same result as I would be doing on Mac, but it did have everything that I needed. All the tools that I would typically use were accessible to me. Side note, I did discover something while I was learning to get around the app. Logic and YouTube were playing at the exact same time.
Icon and then tap on the button in the top right that will remove that plugin. In edit mode, you can also change the order of your plugins by tapping and dragging the plugin to a different location. And to return to your regular view, just
So you can have multiple sources of audio on iPad. Interesting. Someone needs to make this system-wide. Anyways, after spending about an hour tinkering with everything, I started to write some stuff. 2 to 3 hours into it, the app just crashed randomly, and I lost all my work. Feeling frustrated, I just called it a day, and then I came back to it the next day, ready to try again. I actually changed my approach and decided to start with the AI tools in Logic, since Apple was boasting all about it earlier in the year. I was using the AI drummer, the AI bass player, and the AI keyboard player. Then once I got something down as a starting point, I started to write something. I came at this new take from the perspective of writing a rock song. So I opened up the guitar plugin to see if the AI would help me with the guitar parts too, but it left a lot to be desired very quickly. I was unmotivated. It didn't help that the things I would mute would start playing still anyways. So it didn't crash the program again, but it did start getting buggy. And I took that as a sign to scrap this whole approach altogether, instead of trying again for a few hours and possibly losing everything again. I was actually about to cancel this whole project after that, to tell you the truth. I was over it. I was just gonna hand this iPad a big L for this sector of creating something. L for Logic. I'm sorry. But then, as I normally do, I was just screwing around on the piano, doing the bare minimum with the synth plugins, and I came up with this. I immediately got interested again. So I scrapped all this new stuff that I was working on and I went back to my classic formula, if you're aware of my writing style. I started from scratch one more time. Everything just started flowing to me, and I ended up writing this song quite effortlessly. It has my typical structure and progression of a song. I decided to take a lighthearted approach and just have fun with it. Once I did that, everything came together very fast. At the end of the writing process, I went back to that older AI stuff I started out with, and I ended up using the bass in this song, which I'm glad I got to incorporate it just to see how this stuff works in this current format. As a piano player myself, I don't like the AI keyboard player right now. And as for the drums, I ended up taking the AI version that it came up with. I converted that to a MIDI track so I can have control over all the drum kit parts with the rhythm as well. And I ended up changing most of the drums. And I also added my own drum parts in there. So did I use AI to make the drums? I don't know. Let's call it 60-40. I did most of it. Mixing was difficult or downright confusing at times. Like I couldn't just get to my stereo out track for mastering the same way I could on the Mac. There were 2 to 3 additional steps to get there, but okay, fine, I figured it out. But then something odd kept happening. I couldn't just grab a piece of the music and move it to a different part of the song. I mean, sometimes I could, but most of the time it fought me. But the moment I moved Logic to the iPad screen, I could just touch and drag it like it was intuitively meant to happen. That's when something started clicking for me. I found myself working better when I was working right off of the iPad instead of using the studio display. Everything I was trying to do in the mixing phase was either fighting me, glitching out, or outright crashing. But on the iPad, I could just automate as intended where I wanted stuff to happen. So I ended up just mixing, mastering, and outright finishing the song directly on the iPad itself. I literally did it from the comfort of my bed. It was actually kind of fun to literally grab the tracks and arrange them or get less technical in the mixing process and just feel for the right volume levels and whatnot, because trust me, it didn't always show me the exact numbers I was looking for. So this whole song was like written and mixed through like feeling it, which was a refreshing take on the process. I still much rather use a mouse and a keyboard to get my exact marks down instead of just loosely going with it. But there is something to be said about going off of intuition instead of technical movements. I liked it. So there you have it. I finished the song, I made the cover art through an image generator, and I was able to get everything uploaded for streaming. Can I make a song from scratch and get it to streaming worldwide on the iPad alone? Yes. This experience has made me miss and appreciate the Mac version of Logic. But man, we are so close. I feel like I can say that about most things on the iPad right now. I mean, look, we know iPads have been capable for doing everything basic computing, but when it comes to making something out of nothing, to create art that requires more than just the Apple Pencil, this almost doesn't feel real. To get to where we are today with Mac, it has taken exactly 40 years to get to this exact point. But the iPad, it's only been 14 years, not even half the time. And we are so close. If they stay at this rate of improving the iPad, and I do mean actual improvements, that post-PC world that Steve Jobs talked about back in 2010 could actually make sense for most things. Like 90% of everything. Let's get Xcode on the iPad next. Anyways, I'm not going to show the full song here. You can stream it wherever you listen to music. I will have a link in the description for you to check out. Or you can head over to my YouTube artist channel and check out the not music video visualizer over there. Link also will be in the description. Hey, subscribe to the channel while you're over there. I have a lot of content over there, and I'll have more new music over there soon too. This was fun. I never actually thought I could make any of this happen, but I did. And now the world can hear what an iPad can do too.